Let our hearts not be hardened to those living on the margins. There is a room at the table for everyone. This is where it all begins. This is how we gather in. There is room at the table for everyone. Too long we have wandered, burdened and undone, but there is room at the table for everyone. Let us sing the new world in. This is how it all begins. There is room at the table for everyone. There is room for us all, and no gift is too small. There is room at the table for everyone. There's enough if we share. Come on, pull up a chair. There is room at the table for everyone. No matter who you are, no matter where you're from, there is a room at the table for everyone. Here and now we can be the beloved community. There is room at the table for everyone. There is room for us all, and no gift is too small. There is room at the table for everyone. There's enough if we share. Come on, pull up a chair. There is room at the table for everyone. There is room for us all, and no gift is too small. There is room at the table for everyone. There's enough if we share. Come on, pull up a chair. There is room at the table for everyone. Let our hearts not be hardened to the living on the margins. There is a room at the table for everyone. This is how we gather in for everyone. Everyone.
Good morning. Good morning. Make sure you guys can hear me okay. Welcome to the live in-person and live Zoom worship service of the Unitarian Universalist Church of Riverside. Mahalo. Our opening hymn this morning is 347, Gather the Spirit, from the Gray Hymnal. Feel free to sing as the Spirit moves you. Please stand in body or spirit and join us in singing hymn 347, Gather the Spirit.
Gather the Spirit, harvest the power. Our separate fires will kindle one flame. Witness the mystery of this hour. Our trials in this sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion and strength. Gather to celebrate once again. Gather the spirit of heart and mind. Seeds for the sowing are laid in store. Nurtured in love, conscious refined, with body and spirit united once more. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion and strength. Gather to celebrate once again. Gather the spirit growing in awe, drawn by the moon, fed by the sun. Winter to spring, summer to fall, the chorus of life resounding as one. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion and strength. Gather to celebrate once again.
Thank you for joining us here in person, and thank you for joining us remotely by Zoom, where we will continue live streaming and posting these services on the YouTube channel for our virtual attendees. I'm Laura Luna, a friend of UUCR, and I will be your worship associate today. Other members of the worship committee who make this service possible include Alec Peck, our music coordinator, Anna Mudking, who monitors our visual and online connections, and Kate Lewicki, who is in charge of our sound system. We welcome you to join us this morning with an open mind and an open heart. And with muted electronic devices, please. We welcome you into the space of love, justice, and fellowship. We are glad you are here with us today. Unitarian Universalists seek to build bridges from the individual to the wider society. As a community of people who have actively lived their faith with values, we strive to use our collective voices, empowered by joining together to do good in the world, and hope you will join us. And now I invite you to sit back, take a slow, deep breath as we move into the worship hour. Before we move into this service, there are a few announcements we would like to share. We will mention several websites, email addresses, and phone numbers. At the end of the service, we will leave up the slide with all of this information, and it is available on our website. The monthly UUCR newsletter comes at the first of every month by email and per request by postal mail. If you have something newsworthy or that you would like to contribute, email uuchurchofriverside.calendar@gmail.com or call the church at 951-686-6515. If you would like to be added to our mailing list, please contact the church office. Look for the newsletter this week. Our first Sunday luncheon resumes today after the service. Today's theme is One Pot Dishes. Contributions are appreciated and will be donated to the church fund. The Concerned UUs of Riverside, the community outreach arm of the SEJC, will be meeting in the SJ room on the second floor of the annex at 11:30. You can find more information on the website under Social and Environmental Justice. Church Council will meet on the second Friday of the month in the annex. The next meeting will be at 4 p.m. on September 8th. Women's Fed will resume meeting in October. On Saturday, September 9th, from 2 to 7 p.m., the City of Riverside is offering free access to historic sites throughout the downtown district. UUCR will be participating in this event. The 2023 Pride Festival will be held at the Riverside Convention Center on Sunday, September 10th from 12 to 10 p.m. UUCR will have a tablet at the event, and we will invite volunteers to come and represent our church at the service. And now I invite you to sit back and take a slow, deep breath, and we are really moving into worship hour. You are welcome to read with the mission statement of our church. You can read it with me if you like. Our mission is to foster a diverse religious community that celebrates life, affirms the individual, encourages spiritual growth and open thought, and works to advance social justice and environment sustainability. Today, we have a guest speaker that I'm very happy to present. His name is Alan Ridley, and he has an MA. He was born in Minnesota. Alan Ridley discovered Universalist Unitarian at this church while attending Riverside Poly High School. He graduated from college that's the same one that Steve Jobs dropped out of, Reed College, then received a scholarship to study in Yugoslavia. In the U.S. Army, he learned to get along with people from many walks of life. He taught in Indonesia and Japan, researching and implementing accelerated learning which uses music and art to teach anything. He then worked as the Economic Development Representative in the San Ysidro Ote Mesa Enterprise Zone. He is semi-retired from the Career and Transfer Center at Cuyamaca College, where he championed renewable energy and researched green careers in San Diego and Imperial counties. He serves as president of the Foundation for Economic Justice, is married with 2 grown children, a Yorkie, a full-size poodle. He lives in San Diego County and grows dragon fruit from moringa, the miracle tree. Alan dreams of building community, strengthening democracy, and saving the planet. Jeff Green is the Associate Director of the Inland Equity Communities Land Trust, a nonprofit organization dedicated to building community land trust in the IE. Jeff has a long history of advocating for health and housing policy. Healthcare and housing costs are the 2 drivers of poverty in the United States. Jeff has been instrumental in driving policies aimed at addressing housing disparities and advocating for policies that prioritize the need of low-income communities. Jeff's expertise lies in developing innovative strategies to ensure affordable housing opportunities, prevent displacement, and foster community ownership of land. Jeff has worked with policymakers and stakeholders in shaping housing policies like inclusionary housing, rent control, and the development of community land trusts, with focus on social justice and sustainable development. Jeff Green continues to play a pivotal role in advancing inclusive housing policies. This talk will focus on the importance of land, a very biblical topic. We all need access to land and the fruits it provides to survive. Yet the importance of land in our lives is not often well understood nor greatly appreciated. Affordable housing is an emerging and increasingly urgent need in Riverside, California, and almost everywhere. How can a better understanding of the role of land help us to get to better housing and the promised land? How can community land trusts create permanently affordable housing? This presentation will explain the concept of community land trusts and the work of nonprofit organization, Inland Equity Community Land Trust. We are blessed with the space and opportunity to strive to live in our common principles, to bring justice, equity, and compassion into our daily lives, to resist all that threatens the earth and her people, and to be part of a world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all. Let these thoughts carry us forth as we journey in worship together. So yeah, today's reading. Sorry about that. Should I do this one or this one? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Sorry, it's my first time. We have two lightings of sacred flames. The first one is the occupied Indigenous people remembrance candle. The second is the lighting of our own chalice, the symbol of our faith. We walk upon the traditional territories of diverse and sovereign peoples, the original people of this land, who continue to cry out for justice and self-determination. This spot we occupy was first the sacred spot of several groups of Indigenous people, including the Cahuilla, the Cupeño, and the Serrano. We, the Universalist Unitarian Church of Riverside, light this sacred flame as the stewardess of this sacred and holy place. Today's reading of the chalice lighting is Inherent Worth and Dignity by Steve Stock. We light this chalice to celebrate the inherent worth and dignity of every person, to reaffirm the historic pledge of liberal religion to seek that justice, which transcends mere legality and moves toward the resolution of true equality, and to share that love which is ultimately beyond our cherished reason, that love which unites all of us. We have a tradition at UUCR to welcome those who are visitors or perhaps returning after some time. We know it can be uncomfortable to stand up and speak in front of others, and so I will now ask for a volunteer from someone who has been here a while to tell us your name and how you found out about the church. We ask you to step close to the mic and speak into it directly and clearly so everyone can hear. However, be aware that you will be visible on our Zoom camera and in the recording of this service, which is posted online. Do we have any church members who would like to volunteer? Thank you. Please step forward and to the mic and tell us your name and how long you've been here and how you found out about our church, please.
Hi, my name is Maggie Williams, and I first heard, when I retired, I moved to Redlands. I had lived in San Diego until then, and I had been a member of the UU Church there, and also in San Francisco before that, and in Marin County before that. So when I moved here to Redlands, I was hoping to be a church in Redlands, but there wasn't. I mean, there are lots of churches, but not a UU church. So I checked it out and found out there was one in Riverside. This was the closest one. So I got directions and made my first trip to Riverside back in, it was in 2006. And so I became a member and have been a member ever since. I am third generation UU, and I wanted to share this morning because I have been away for the entire summer, and I do not think that was because I didn't want to come here. I broke my arm and had some repair work to do on myself before I could come back. I'm doing well now, and I'm glad to be back. And just thank you all for being here and for me to come to the.
Thank you. And that's how it's done. If you are new here, a visitor or an old friend, please raise your hand to stand up and come to the mic in front of the pulpit if you would like to. If there's someone online who would like to introduce themselves, please raise your hand and we will call on you by Zoom. Please let us know who you are, where you are from, and how you found out about us. For any of our new guests, please join us for socializing and coffee hour after the service. We'd love to chat with you in the parish hall, where you can also find our visitors book. Please leave your name before you leave so that we know you are here, and leave your contact information if you want to know about upcoming events. For those online, the best way to get added to the mailing list is to email the church office, admin@uuchurchofriverside.org. It is said that shared joy is double joy, and shared sorrow is half the sorrow. On the first Sunday of each month, we share the joys and current concerns that we have received from you and which you have collected throughout the month. First, I'm going to read the joys and concerns which were given to us. There is a concern that the conservative evangelical Christians are now saying Jesus is too liberal. There is a joy that we have a 3-day weekend. We have a concern in the church for those who are going through hardships and feeling they are alone. They say there is hope in reaching out for support. We also have a concern for a friend who was injured in a car accident. And our last concern is for a friend whose 3-year-old daughter is being treated for a heart condition. Is there anyone here in the sanctuary who would like to speak of their joy or concern? Please raise your hand and we will invite you to speak it here at the microphone.
Good morning. My name is Ren, and I have a big joy because this month is my wedding. And of course, it is very stressful planning everything, but a lot of it is already settled. We're figuring out details, and it's very exciting.
Very nice, thank you. We place a stone in our water chalice to represent the joys and concerns we have shared with our church, community, and in recognition of those we hold close who have not shared.
Our joys, smooth sailing. The roughness of stone, or occasionally the roughness and grit it takes to get through. Partially mixed, or simply a third stone, that is, those words that we do not speak in public. I would ask you all to continue to send your grace and hopes and spirit towards the people who are fighting climate change effects around the world. Everybody taking people out of collapsed buildings, everyone dealing with floods, all of those people, and those who pick it up as well. Takes a village to raise a child. We never tell you how many children it takes to raise a village.
Thank you, Bill. May we remember those who have spoken, those that were named, and those we hold in silence in our hearts. We're going to sing now. We're going to sing Blue Boat Home. Our hymn now is 1064, Blue Boat Home, from the Teal Hymnal. Feel free to sing as the Spirit moves you. Please stand in body and spirit, joining us 1064, Blue Boat Home. This portion of our service is to support our beloved historical church. This can be accomplished several ways. In addition to the weekly collection, you may send your checks to the church address, which is shown here. You may contribute by PayPal using the QR code, which is shown here, as well as the church website and in the newsletter. Stater Brothers Market gives our church a rebate on Stater's grocery cards, which we'll have in church each Sunday. Amazon gift cards are also available. You get the full value, and the church also receives a percentage for free. Please see Dinah Rowe or Robert Braun in the church office if you are interested in purchasing the gift cards. Please donate as the Spirit moves you by whatever method works for you. Thank you for your generosity. And to those who give of their time and their talent, thank you for your generous care and attention. Will our ushers please now come forward to receive the collection? Remember, it is your presence that is truly the gift for the church, for you being here and you being present online. Our next hymn will be 402, From You I Receive, from the gray hymnal. Feel free to sing as the Spirit moves you. Please stand in body and spirit and join us in singing hymn 402, From You I Receive.
From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give, together we share, from this we live. From you I receive.
Our meditation today is an excerpt from meditation written by Laura Bogle. Please join with me in reading the projected bold, italicized lines. We gather here to remember this is our home, but not just ours. This land we live on, this water we drink, this air we breathe, these old mountains that hold us steady to our ground, these forests that give us their healing green, these flowers that give us their beauty and fragrance, these fields that give us our daily bread, these stars that show us our place, the wilderness and the tame backyards, all of it is our home. We remember the ancestors who have lived on this land and who have shaped it. We inherit their choices. We honor the animals and creatures that have made their home in this land, and the ones here now, and the ones that used to be here. We envision the future generations who will live on this land and let their voices fill our hearts. We gather here to remember this is our home, but not just ours. Now let us pause for a moment of silence and reflection, please. Now I would love to introduce Alan Ridley, speaking to us on land, shelter, and a place to stand, followed by Jeff Green, who will be speaking to us on community land trust overview.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I love the custom and tradition of taking a deep breath. It's really refreshing. Let's see here. Now. So there are some people who teach economics that try to talk about it's just about land, labor and capital, that land is really not a significant part of that. And the response to that is I have a little limerick that goes like this. There once was an economist who tried to teach economics without land. He would have succeeded, but he found that he needed food, shelter, and a place to stand. Good morning. My name is Alan Ridley, and I'm delighted to be here with you this morning and share with you some thoughts and this PowerPoint that I put together. And there's supposed to be a way. Well, anyway, let's see if I can do this. There we go. Is that better? Yeah. Okay, so this is the subtitle for the presentation, Improving Housing in Riverside in Southern California, More Perspectives on Land and Housing Issues. And you can see here kind of some of the traditions and where we've been and where we're going with housing. And one of the connectors between my presentation and Jeff's is Henry George. There's a guy, his name is Lars Doucet. It's a French name. He's actually Norwegian and lives in Texas, so go figure. Anyway, he won a contest to review Progress in Poverty by Henry George. And the title of his book pretty much says it all. Uh-oh. It's not sharing screen. Uh-oh. Zoom? No, I'm sorry. Zoom. Start video. No. Sorry about that. Let's see, how did I get there? Maybe go this one. Yeah, there's share screen. Sorry about that. I'll just stick with this then, not try to be fancy. So Lars Doucet made an interesting statement. He said, land and the policies that govern it hold an incredible and largely forgotten power over our lives. And this is a picture of Pittsburgh that has a very effective land policies. And it's a really beautiful, wonderful city. After the steel industry left, the smoke settled, and they discovered they had a really beautiful city. This is the alternative. When land is wasted and squandered, we get sky-high rents, oppressed workers, ruined businesses, depleted natural resources, a polluted earth, and an impoverished society. Not too good. And so people live like this, or like this. This is some of the housing they're proposing for Riverside. My preference, and then this is another example, and this is my preference, is living like this in Harmony Village. This is Golden, Colorado. It's a co-housing project. And now we're going to do something really challenging, is I'm going to try to open this link and not get the commercials that sometimes come with it. And this is is this going to work? This is a little presentation on co-housing. And I hope it comes up quickly. This is the commercial that we don't want. This is what we have to tolerate. Here we get to skip the ad in order to get this. And this is it. This is co-housing.
It's a simple concept, a living arrangement offering both privacy and community.
Riding the horsey.
It's called co-housing, and here's how it works.
Okay, here we go.
In co-housing villages, families or individuals own their own homes or apartments, but share common facilities, tools, amenities, including rooms for out-of-town guests, and about 5 meals each week. Cars are kept out of the central area of the community, providing a safe place for children.
This one, and this one, and this one.
Residents contribute a bit of work to the upkeep of the community. Decisions are made by consensus.
Fundamental to co-housing is not only having dinner together on occasion, but most importantly, that the future residents, or at least a good portion of them, are very involved in the design of the project. It's important that we get people back into a village-like setting where they know each other, they care about each other, and they support each other.
I spent most of my time working. I didn't know my neighbors very well, and I did a lot of research online and came across co-housing.
This is hopefully the America of the future.
We all really trust each other. We know we're working together.
I can have my privacy here, but there's community right outside my door. I mean, it's the best of both worlds.
There we go. So that's in Nevada City. I visited Charles Durrett up there. He invited me to stay overnight with him. It's right near Nevada, Northern California, very pleasant place. So this is a very interesting place in, where did that come from, that audio? Very nice, but I don't know where it's coming from. Anyway, maybe it's a good omen. This is Kemper Village. It's in Port Townsend, Washington, and it was started by a group of Unitarians. It was a Unitarian congregation who were, surprise, surprise, they got older every day, and they said, well, we'd like to live together when we get old. And so they, most of them owned houses, and they sold their houses and bought into this complex here. I'm not sure if they own this agricultural land, but they've built it, and it cost about $300,000 per unit. About a $10 million project altogether. Let's see here. And this is, after it was built, pretty happy community. I haven't visited yet, but I'd like to. And I think they drew from Unitarians from all over the state of Washington and Oregon and so on. So in Riverside, how many of you know about Braemar Co-op or Braemar Incorporated? There was a lady in this congregation who owned a unit there. I called them yesterday and they said she moved away. Do you remember her name? Martha. Yes. How many of you knew her? Oh, wow. Great. Where did she move to? Ventura. Yeah, somewhere on the coast. Pardon? To be with family. Okay, good. Well, anyway, this is really a great setup. They sell the units. I think it's like $80,000 for a 1-bedroom and $90,000 for a 2-bedroom. It's permanently affordable. So when they're up for sale, there are a lot of people on the waiting list trying to get into this. Where is that bird sound coming from? Anyway, this is where co-housing was used to address homelessness, and this was in Napa County, California. I think the land was donated either by the city or the county. And then they built these co-housing units. They're duplexes with a 1-bedroom in each unit. And the people who live there use a portion of their Social Security or SSI to pay for their units. And this is how we got here. I mean, this is one of the steps in our evolution on this in California. And I guess it's a continuing struggle. And this is probably the most interesting and useful slide in this presentation. So this is, California has about 99.8 million acres, about 100 million acres. But we only live on 8.6% of these acres. And the reason for that is that it's another insight from Henry George. He says, 1 + 1 = 3. In other words, if two people get together and they work together, they're more productive than three people working individually. And we want to live in cities not just because of the Starbucks and the Chipotle, but we want to live in cities because we're more productive. One person can concentrate on growing or preparing the food, and another person can concentrate on building houses, and another person can concentrate on studying medicine and the healing arts, and it all works together. But the reason, you're probably wondering, why don't we use the rest of that 91.4 million acres? You know, it's a lot of land. And well, there are many reasons for that. And one of the biggest reasons is it's prone to fires. Another big reason is that it's either too dry and too hot and too inhospitable, or it's too cold and it's too high up in the mountains and it's just not, or you're living on the coast here and your house is falling into the ocean. It's just, you just don't want to live there. And another reason is it's too beautiful. We don't want people to live in Yosemite or Sequoia or other places. I guess I'm being reminded by these birds singing that we're not here alone, that we share this planet and this land with other creatures. And if we're lucky, we appreciate that. So a lot of us live on like 1/5 of an acre, or a lot of houses are built on 1/5 of an acre. However, a lot of cities now, they have more concentrated developments. This is a new development in San Diego. It looks out on the bay. It's really a delight, but you could get about 500 people there. It's 1/3 of an acre. So addressing the less fortunate, we have a group, there's a Baptist church in El Cajon that built these emergency shelters for homeless women, veterans with children. And we were delighted that the city council of El Cajon approved it unanimously, but they said, you've got to put electricity in there. So a year later, we finally got the electricity in, and this is where it is, in Meridian Baptist Church in El Cajon. And so, and they had an extra room in their parking lot. And so we built these units with electricity, and there they are, and there they are occupied. And that's pretty much it for me. I'm with the Foundation for Economic Justice. This is our mission: to inspire public interest in basic economics, including the important role of land and natural resources in promoting liberty, justice, and prosperity in Southern California and San Diego. This is the inside of our, we're co-host with a friend center. And this is our most successful event we had, one of our more successful events. It was on ADUs, accessory dwelling units. And we had 4 partners, and AARP donated the hors d'oeuvres. So there was no charge. It was in the middle of the day. We didn't serve lunch or anything, but it was a very successful event. And we showcased these ADUs that people are putting in their backyards in San Diego. It creates more housing and hopefully reduces the pressure on houses, and some of them have pretty good views. And this is one in Chula Vista where I live. And this is an example of a house and an ADU in the backyard. And I had a dream of creating a dignity corps, which would have a marching band. And instead of homeless people, we'd have people playing the clarinet and marching down the street, playing music. And in conclusion, I'd like to share with you what some of our board members said, that it's better to be a beneficiary. So we have a system that doesn't work too well, but it's better to be a beneficiary of this system rather than a victim. In other words, become a landowner or a homeowner as much as possible because all the advantages are piled up toward them. And the other insight is that I think this is from Confucius or Abraham Lincoln, that you cannot help the poor by becoming one of them. So this is our website, and this is us. And now I think we're ready for Jeff. Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right. All right. Can you hear me without this, or do I? No, that's fine. Okay. My name is Jeff Green. I'm with the Inland Equity Community Land Trust. I'm the associate director, and I'm going to just talk a little bit about what land trusts are and the definition, the history, community land trusts, a little bit about what they're doing here in the Southwest, a little bit about how we can work with jurisdictions, cities, other public authorities to try and create community land trusts, and then the concept of permanent affordability and why community land trusts are a good model for that. So here in the Southwest, we have Irvine Community Land Trust, Beverly, Vermont, which is on the corner of Beverly and Vermont and Los Angeles. St. Joseph Community Land Trust, Sawmill in Tucson. We have us, Inland Equity Community Land Trust, and then Thrive South Santa Ana. There are a few others now starting up. The Community Land Trust was defined in a law in the federal government by Bernie Sanders, of all people, because he started one called Burlington Community Land Trust in Vermont, and it's one of the largest in the United States. It has over 700 homes, and for instance, in the 2008 financial crisis, 0 people in Beverly, Vermont Community Land Trust lost their house due to a foreclosure. So one of the strategies that community land trusts offer is to shield people from the fluctuations of the market on housing. And so instead of treating housing like a financial instrument, it treats housing as a home where you live. The history of the community land trust is rooted in the civil rights movement in the United States. It basically the initial sort of ideas were probably Adam Smith talking about the evils of landlord during the American Revolution and the concept of landlordism. And then Henry George, as was mentioned by Alan, came up with a single tax policy idea. And then people started to establish garden communities, which were single tax communities. Eventually, that strategy was used to buy a large piece of land for agricultural purposes in the American South during the Civil Rights Movement to create an integrated community of farmers. And then that turned into new communities, which you can see here. It's a little farmers market. New communities was the first use of a community land trust, and then as named as a community land trust. And then the first one for housing was the Burlington Community Land Trust when Bernie Sanders was mayor, which now is the Lake Champlain Community Housing Trust. And this is the quote, a quote from Henry George, where an invisible tax on enterprise collected by those who contribute nothing themselves and increase to increase productivity. Landlordism is the bane for capital and labor alike. So again, this is a strategy to basically cut out the landlord. So this is a little bit more, I talked a little bit about these, the garden cities, the kibbutzim in Israel, single tax colonies, and the school for living. All of these are institutions that over the last 150 years, developed into what's now the Community Land Trust. And these are some of the people that were fundamental in that, who started new communities. This is Slater King. He's one of the leaders, cousin of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and head of the Albany movement in Albany, Georgia during the Civil Rights Movement. Bob Swan was a war resistor and spent much of World War II in jail for his beliefs in pacifism. And Charles Sherrod is there. He's registering people to vote during the Mississippi Freedom Summer. And then Faye Bennett, who ran a nonprofit in the South that would buy up sharecropper debt and free sharecroppers from virtual slavery in the South. And then Father Albert McKnight, who was an African-American priest in Louisiana during the 40s, 50s, and 60s. And they all got together and founded the first board for the new communities, farmers. And so that eventually led to Burlington Community Land Trust, which was started as a housing community land trust strictly for affordable housing. And then currently here in the Southwest, in Southern California, there are 157 people that live in a house in community land trusts. There's 508 renters. And then generally the income qualifications for people are between 50% area median income and 125% area median income. Those are the people that are served by community land trust right now. The land lease or the price to basically rent land varies among community land trusts. So $1 a year to $150 a month. And then that some of them pay property taxes. The state of California has a what's called welfare tax exemption if you're doing low income housing. Some community land trusts collect that, others don't. There are laws that you have to comply with if you do collect it, and not all community land trusts are structured around those laws. And so the housing costs, this is the good one, is right now, I mean, if you think about it, if you're paying rent or a mortgage and you're paying $600 to $1,500 a month, you're doing pretty well. And that's the range in these homes. The operating cost to run a community land trust for staff averages at $277,000 a year. And the average number of staff to run a community land trust is 2.8 people. And then I'm going to fast forward here because I don't know how much time I have left. So there's a strategy for subsidizing homes that jurisdictions use. There's 3 of them. So subsidy forgiveness, you give a landlord a big chunk of money. If he uses it properly and fills his apartment complex with low-income qualified people, then you can forgive the loan, you can forgive the interest on the loan. A lot of that goes on. That's called subsidy forgiveness, and the landlords get rich off of that. You have subsidy recapture. So you can subsidize and like a housing trust fund. So some communities have a trust fund and you can borrow out of it at 0 or very low interest and then pay back into that trust fund, and then it can be used to finance more affordable housing. And so that's subsidy recapture, and that we're trying to get people to start that here in the Inland Empire as well. There isn't one yet, but like WRCOG and so the Western Regional Council of Governments is WRCOG, and they're considering starting a housing trust fund for the Inland Empire area. And so is SCOG, which is the Southern California Association of Governments. Then there's subsidy retention. So that's the strategy used by community land trust. If you give a community land trust subsidies to build an affordable house, the person buys it, and I'll go into that a little bit further here. They'll buy it at one rate, and then let's say they paid, I have a slide on this, don't I? Yes. Okay. So let's say they paid, an example would be a market rate house at $370,000. The buyer would buy the house for $320,000. And then the land trust, which raised money and got subsidies up to $50,000, calls that the land value. They split that, and then they live in the house, and then they build up their equity. And let's say the value goes up. So now when they sell the house, it's $410,000. The land trust keeps 50,000 of that. So they're going to sell it for 410 and take the equity they earned out of it. And then that 50,000 is going to go on to subsidize the next buyer. So it reduces the price for the next buyer going forward. And that's how it permanently keeps affordable housing. So rent is our most significant expense if you're poor, rent and healthcare costs. And so if people do get affordable housing, they're able to spend more into their community. They're able to go to the coffee shops or buy flowers or whatever it is on Mother's Day. And so the local economy improves and the local community benefits if housing costs are low. And so those are the kinds of things that we're trying to accomplish with the Community Land Trust, and to hold wealth in the community locally. And so at this point, we have land up in Adelanto where we're building 4 homes. And one of our friendly competitors, Neighborhood Housing Partnership Services, has 3 homes in the city of San Bernardino that are going to be in a land trust. They don't have homeowners yet, but they're trying to find the paperwork necessary, because what they've done is build a house, and the property they got, they immediately added an ADU, and they're having difficulty working it out with the assessor's office. If they sell both of them as community land trusts, which was their goal, then who owns what on the property? And so they're working that out right now. Somebody could buy the house and then rent out the ADU, and the tax assessors won't have a problem with that. But on the deed and on the liens and everything else, they want all of that clearly defined before anybody will finance some homeowner buying into it. So they're going to beat us, I think. I'm hoping that takes them a long time with all that paperwork, because our structure is different. And then we will be the first community land trust in the Inland Empire, but we're on a race here. So that's it. Thank you.
If we have questions of what's going on, we will also have time at the end to ask any questions after the. Okay, our closing hymn is 163, For the Earth Forever Turning, from the Gray Hymnal. Feel free to sing as the Spirit moves you. Please stand in body and spirit and join us in singing hymn 163, For the Earth Forever Turning.
For the earth forever turning, for the skies for every sea, for our lives, for all we cherish, sing we our joyful song of peace. For the mountains, hills, and pastures, in their silent majesty, for the stars, for all the heavens, sing we our joyful song of peace. For the sun, for rain and thunder, for the seasons' harmony, for our lives, for all creation, sing we our joyful praise to thee. For the world we raise our voices, for the home that gives us birth. In our joy we sing, returning home to our blue-green hills of earth, to our blue-green hills of earth.
We end our gathering with gratitude for camaraderie, shared wisdom, and goodwill, and support that we extend to each other within this community. May we continue to bless each other with these gifts, and may we reflect those blessings back out into the world as we minister to those around us. Namaste, amen, and blessed be. Thank you, Alan, Ridley, and Jeff Green, for sharing your valuable time and insights with us this morning. It is sincerely appreciated, and we look forward to seeing you again. For those of you who would like to stay in the sanctuary for 10 to 15 minutes to share some discussion or observations from the service, please remain in the sanctuary or online. Please be aware that these comments will be posted online. For the rest of you, you are now welcome to adjourn into the parish hall. Would anyone like to come up and share their thoughts today? Is there anyone online who would like to share with us?
I hate being adversarial about this, but this looks like such a sweet deal that there would be forces who tend to go, that's nice, but I would rather that it belong to my real estate company than to as a community where it's built. What are the methods that you guys are using again to keep this from getting bought up and moving back to the standard we have, which is too much rent?
I think the answer is Henry George's solution. This wasn't a lecture about Henry George, but it could have been. I think if anybody wants a copy of Progress in Poverty, Jeff can go. He's going to go grab one right now. Anybody want a copy of Progress in Poverty? Okay, he'll go and grab one. Or do you want to make a comment, Jeff? I think my first response to that is that the solution is Henry George's solution. He claims he found the solution to poverty, and the cause of poverty is the unequal ownership of land. And his solution was to have a small but fair tax on the land itself. So people will not, the banks will not hoard the land. They will not buy up everything, because if they do, they have to pay more taxes. We should reduce the exemption for homeowners so the homeowners don't have to pay. But if you reduce the tax on improvements and keep or increase the tax on land, which is what they've done in Pittsburgh, Australia, New Zealand, Taiwan, Singapore, and the happiest country in the world, Denmark, it's not a problem. The land speculators don't swarm in. They say, I'm going to sell my land. I don't want to pay this land tax. So they sell it to someone who will put it to better, higher use. Jeff, did you want to respond? What's that?
Well, okay, so the strategy of a community land trust, which is one strategy. So it would be dependent, right? It would take eternal vigilance. The board would be the one, because as a nonprofit, that board owns the land, right? Whoever sits on that board controls what they do with it. And so the way our nonprofit is structured, we have, it requires 1/3 of our board be residents who live in the community land trust, 1/3 of the board be staffed by partnering nonprofits, and then another 1/3 of the board be staffed by members that are elected to jurisdictions. So City Council of Adelanto, or cities where the community land trust is, so that they have an investment in this property. However, nothing's perfect. You saw with locally, Parkview Hospital used to be a nonprofit hospital. The board sold the hospital to a private interest, and now you have the Parkview Legacy Foundation, which has a ton of money but we also have a privatized hospital. That could happen to a lot of nonprofits go that direction eventually when they wind up sitting on some very valuable asset like land and houses would be right now. So it would be dangerous. However, there are a lot of solutions, making a lot of land trusts so that they don't all happen at once. Another solution, if you look at Vienna, Austria, they've had this issue. They're the model you point to whenever you talk about housing policy, because people can afford to live there and do just fine, even if they're poor, right? They can afford to live in a house. And so there's a lot of policies you can look at as far as like social housing policies. We have a history in this country of thinking of Cabrini Green when you think of social housing or public housing or projects. There's a lot you can look at if you look at closely at that history of how and why Cabrini Green turned into the fiasco that it did. But you also have the examples of in the United States. Levittown is a famous example where the government spent money to build houses for people coming home after World War II. It unfortunately was a racist society, it still is somewhat. And so that was for white people, and white people got to own those homes in the Levittown development. But in Cabrini Green, which was built and intended for people of color, it was for rent, right? And so none of those people got the inherited historic wealth that came with home ownership. And so there's mixed we have examples in our own history of things that we've done that, if your fear is because of the word social and social housing, and your fear is socialism, which I don't think I'm in the, in a bad place for that here, but in some communities that word, evokes a kind of terror. But before that, we had policies in the United States and we didn't turn into a communist dictatorship. So I think, doing those, but this time not being racist would be good. That would also help. Not treating houses as financial instruments and treating them, banks have a big deal to do about what our houses look like, what our houses are made out of, what our houses, how big and how all those standards are set to what banks will lend to. And then our ideas about the appreciation value of houses is all mathed into it. And so that's what drives it. It's like buying a stock or a bond or a other piece of paper asset. And that's why BlackRock is buying them. They don't care if people live in them or not. They want them to appreciate and value. And if they hold them, they will. And so they're buying them as an investment asset, and they don't care about who lives in what, as long as they've got a book of them that averages out to a profit. And so we need to avoid that.
I have a comment, not really a question. Just because we are talking about housing and affordable housing, there are a couple issues Tuesday at the Riverside City Council that deal with housing justice in general. And if you don't know, our city council meetings are very long. And so there's two different events at sort of two different sessions of Tuesday's city council. At noon, there will be a press conference, and then the first afternoon session of the city council, there will be a discussion about crime-free housing. Crime-free housing sounds really nice because no one wants to live near crime, but ultimately what crime-free housing is that it keeps people who have any kind of record out of, any kind of criminal record out of that housing, also can get them kicked out if the cops come, if they're called for something, they can get kicked out of crime-free housing. And with a system that is sort of designed to keep people of color with felonies, that kind of keeps people of color out of certain communities, and it has. You can look at where crime-free housing spots are and compare that to where the white communities were in Riverside when we had those sort of things on the deed that said you couldn't, this couldn't be owned by a person of color. And those crime-free housing are right in the area that used to be white only. And that's how they're continuing to keep it white only. So, and it keeps a lot of people out of affordable housing. So there will be a press conference at noon, and then at 1, you can speak at the city council meeting about it. And then in the evening, they're going to be talking about Madison Flats, which is a affordable housing project that our social justice committee has supported. We sent in letters to the city council supporting this. And so I will also be there speaking on behalf of the church, but if anybody would like to come to the 6 o'clock in the evening session, you can come and speak about that. If you are on the social and environmental justice email, you'll get an email about that with both of those with all the information this afternoon. If you're not and you want that email, email socialjustice@uuchurchofriverside.org before 1 o'clock this afternoon, and I'll get you on that list to make sure you get that email with that info.
Thank you.
This is just a minor note, but I saw the beauty of those places right at the end when it was the full community. I also saw the pod houses, which seemed like the sort of thing that you get when you're getting off the street, and it's like the first step. And because they all had the same look about them, many people might be somewhat repelled on that. Just an idea that you can take small boards, a little adhesive, 2 or 3 different colors on them, and basically make the stuff look like, with a little bit of pod, you can take it out from looking like pod housing and make it look a little bit more irregular but people friendly. That I think one of the things to be remembered when we're trying to build the beloved community is to have room for our idiosyncrasies, and an odd-looking little pod house that happens to have 2 or 3 textures of wood on it, a couple of plant holders, and giant fez perched on top is still something that is going to make people feel like their individuality starts to radiate from the inside out, and that it's not some homeowners type thing, but that there's room for diversity and just fun. And the idea of having all of those structures on the outside, like community centers, places to learn stuff, is just wonderful.
That's a really good point to make to add color. I noticed that the city of Riverside is doing these same all white pod houses. They're too many and they're too close together. The city of Chula Vista is doing the same thing. I think they're about 66 units. They're all white. They're too close together. And I think painting them is a good start, putting up some flower planters or other things. But I think there's a big difference between what they did at Meridian Baptist Church, where they had different colors, and there were only 6 units there. So it's a much more livable, humane scale. And the other thing is that I was telling Grace and some other people that I was hoping to start a co-housing project somehow with this church and maybe in connection with others in Riverside and build on the brilliance of the Braemar communities. And then I spoke to Jeff, and Jeff said, well, yeah, that's a great idea, but it may take a long, long time to do that. And Jeff has, this building extra housing on church lots is really a good idea. This church doesn't have the luxury of that. I was thinking of doing something next to the Cheech or something. But Jeff pointed out that he has a church, what's the name of it? Iglesia? Iglesia Palabra Vive. It's on the other side of the freeway, and they were working to add an ADU to the church property, and that's something that's probably much more doable and achievable in our lifetimes, or maybe within a year or two. So I would like to invite you to consider putting some of your time and energy, if you have a desire to build. I mean, we have a problem with housing. We don't have enough houses for people. And so part of the solution is build our own darn houses, isn't it? And one way we can do that is maybe help this Iglesia Palabra Vive build a unit there. We could probably do it within a year. What do you think, Jeff? A year? 2 years? Okay, talk to them first. Take a year or two. Okay, but first we got to talk to them. Yes. Yeah, Jeff pointed out that there's still money to support the building of ADUs. So if you have a house that has room for an ADU, talk to Jeff and he'll tell you how to get $40,000 of. So is there a potluck lunch going on after this? Do you want to tell us about it? Or can you tell us about it?
Sure.
Who?
Sure. Yes, everybody's invited right now to a potluck lunch, and we can continue discussions and get to know each other during lunch today. Thank you.